I'm Andy.
I'm Drew.
And this is Spork.
Spork. So this week, we are going to dive into what if Eli Manning did not force a trade from the Chargers. So, kind of set it up. The top three quarterbacks in the 2004 draft were Eli Manning, Ben Roethlisberger, and Philip Rivers. Overall, actually, they had pretty similar careers. It's kind of weird thinking about it. All three of them were pretty similar when it comes to pure stats. I'd say Philip Rivers probably had the best statistics out of them, and yet Eli Manning has the most accomplished career from his Super Bowls and Super Bowl MVPs. And Roethlisberger sits right in the middle with the Super Bowl wins without the MVPs. So, just some backstory on it. So, in the 2004 draft, Eli Manning went first overall to the Chargers. And prior to the draft, he had told the Chargers that he would not play for them. And the funny thing about that is his agent at the time actually represented the coach, Antonio Gates, I think, or LaDainian Tomlinson. I forget which one. And Drew Brees. So he had, a pretty good idea into the Chargers organization at the time. And yet Eli didn't want to go in there. And part of it, a lot of people, including his dad Archie at the time, came out and said that the way they handled Ryan Leaf's situation a few years prior was part of the reason why Eli Manning would not go to the Chargers or play there.
That's interesting.
But, I think if they take him, keep him, sit him there behind Drew Brees at the time, who's been there, he had a rough first 2 years under Schottenheimer first, and then North Turner came second.
Mm-hmm.
But if he sits behind Drew Brees and then Drew Brees eventually gets traded at the time for Philip Rivers to come through, I think Eli is able to really flourish in what is the Chargers' prime with Antonio Gates, LaDainian Tomlinson, who are just far and away the best at their respective positions during that time period. And then the flip side, the Giants actually rated Roethlisberger above Rivers. So I think they take Roethlisberger, and then Rivers ends up at 3 Rivers Stadium. See what I did there?
Yeah.
In Pittsburgh.
That was sharp. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's kind of weird how the 3 quarterbacks, they have one order for the regular season, with Rivers being the best and Eli being the worst and Roethlisberger in the middle. And yet in the playoffs, it's actually flipped, where Eli's got the best playoffs, Rivers has the worst playoffs, and Ben is consistent in the middle.
Sure.
So, you think about the Super Bowls that impacts, and one of the other things that really surprised me is you got these 3 quarterbacks in the same draft, and they are surprisingly durable for what they are. Eli Manning and Philip Rivers are top 3, maybe top 4 for consecutive starts as a quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Let me pull it up. Yeah, 2 and 3 behind Brett Favre. And then Roethlisberger was up there too. He had a couple injuries in between. I think I forget what year. It was like 13 or 14 that kind of interrupted this span. But outside of that, he was a very consistent quarterback throughout his career too. So you have these 3 quarterbacks that have pretty similar trajectories, and yet I feel like they have very different legacies.
Yes, I I totally agree. That's one of the big call-outs from this, right? Like, you very rarely have a quarterback draft like this, where you have three guys that are arguably all Hall of Famers.
Yeah.
But yeah, in the eyes of the fans or history writers or whatever you want to call it, they're all going to be portrayed in different ways.
And
to your point.
And the crazy thing about the draft and like Heisman voting, none of these quarterbacks won a Heisman. You know who the two Heismans were the 2 years before this draft?
Not a clue.
You had Matt Leinart in 2002, and then he finished 6th in 2003, and then you had Jason White who won that year.
Wow.
And Eli Manning was the highest Heisman vote getter at 3rd. Larry Fitzgerald actually finished 2nd that year before this draft. And Roethlisberger was 7th, and Phillip Rivers was at 8th. So there was they were very good in college too. I mean, I think Eli Manning was the consensus top pick coming out of the draft. He going against SEC. He had a spotty record, but there were games where he had 500-600 yards passing, set unbelievable records in the SEC. But Phillip Rivers was actually the most accomplished. I think he was 4-0 in bowl games and actually started beginning to end freshman to senior year. And Roethlisberger, actually coming out of a mid-major in Miami, he only played 3 seasons. So for him to actually get drafted as high as he did at a mid-major, it's kind of weird to think about now, especially with the way people transfer so much, for him to actually make that jump.
He's like Josh Allen before Josh Allen.
Yeah.
In that regard, yeah. And that was the big thing. Full disclosure, like whenever we research these topics, like for me, it's like the going back in history, the things that I forgot or maybe just didn't even know. And Phillip Rivers, I think for me, maybe just call it ignorance. It's like, I just didn't know. He was all deserving of that high of a pick. And it just never occurred to me that he was that accomplished.
Yeah. I mean, in college, and I have just kind of a snapshot of their stats here. So 4 seasons for Rivers, 3 seasons for Roethlisberger, 4 for Eli. And Phillip Rivers had 95 touchdowns, 34 interceptions. Roethlisberger had 84 touchdowns, 34 interceptions. And Eli Manning had 81 touchdowns, 35 interceptions. So, I mean, they are like...
Wow. Yeah.
That cluster is crazy. And Roethlisberger had the best passer rating. In bowl games, I mentioned Rivers was 4-0. Manning and Roethlisberger were both 1-1. All 3 of them passed for over 10,000 yards. Rivers had the most at 13,000, give or take. It's kind of crazy because then you look at their regular season stats once they get to the NFL, and Eli Manning has the worst win-loss record at 117-117, perfectly 500.
Oh, good. Doesn't that feel right though for Eli?
It does, yeah, and a lot of that has to do with the the Giants at the time.
Right, they were kind of all over the place, weren't they?
And then you had Phillip Rivers at 134 and 106, and then Roethlisberger at 165, 81 and 1. And I think the Steelers were the best coached team. They had the best defense during that time. Rivers had some time with the Colts too, but he didn't play much with the Colts. Mm-hmm. I don't think that factored into his stats a whole lot. They played 16, 17, 18 seasons for Manning, Rivers, Roethlisberger. And it's just eerie how, like, you take their name off of any of their stat lines and you're like, could be any of them. Like, it's like you said at the top, it's amazing how successful this quarterback class was between the three of them.
So what's interesting about it, and I actually did not know that the Giants had graded Roethlisberger higher than Phillip Rivers, because one thing that came to mind is the Chargers' offense is very well. Let's start with the team. The team was defense first, So LT was a perfect, running back for that organization. Antonio Gates was, that was a perfect combo. And so early on,
But I was gonna say, Drew Brees is there, and he gets traded to Archie Manning's former team, the New Orleans Saints. But you gotta think that still happens. So Eli sits for at least 2 years, and then he comes up in that system with when Phillip Rivers did.
Yeah. I was kind of looking at like the two differences, right? Like the Chargers were a little bit less, pass happy.
Yeah.
Whereas, Giants, that was their game. They like to throw the ball around. It's like, so where was going in my head is like, well, Phillip Rivers, the Giants offense, he's arguably more successful, at least from the statistical standpoint, which is saying a lot. I mean, he had a ton of success.
But I mean, just looking at their completion percentage, it's 60.5% to 64%, or 64.9%. So regular season, there's a 4 out of 100 passes. Mm-hmm. So saying they're throwing 30 passes a game on average. That's one pass difference a game.
Sure. I mean, and that's a great way to look at it.
It's razor margins, at that point. And, I think we'll get into playoffs later, but, regular season wise, it's weird to think about. And yet, I think Roethlisberger actually fits Tom Coughlin and the Giants better than Eli does, and better than Rivers does. He's got that tough mentality, that grind it out. It's not the Jets, it's not the flashy bring in Favre, you bring in Rodgers. It's not that. It's not the Jets. They're not high flying. They're the Giants. They're tough. And
they're tough.
Eli grew into that role. But I think Roethlisberger owns that from day one. He takes those hits in the pocket, and he is able to just... I think the NFC kind of becomes a different animal at that point. Whereas, a lot of years, Eli Manning, once he gets to the playoffs, he's great. But I think they become a regular season contender year in, year out with Roethlisberger.
Man, I remember watching Roethlisberger in college and thinking, like, what the hell is he doing at Miami?
You're lying. You never watched a Miami football game.
I watched a couple.
Oh.
Just a couple. Just a couple. Yeah, because I didn't know his name. I was like, who's this guy? I mean, it's like anything, right? It's like, you watch him and you're like, oh, crap, there's actually talent at some of these other, smaller schools.
Well, but Joe Flacco's another one that came from a small school, and like you mentioned, Allen. So,
yeah, but I do think it's an interesting scenario. To your point, it's like everybody's stat lines were very similar. The fit for Roethlisberger at the Giants is great, and the regular season success, I think, translates.
Mm-hmm.
Roethlisberger has shown that he can win the Super Bowl, so I don't think those would be out of the question for him.
I think Rivers almost does better in Pittsburgh than Roethlisberger does, because he's got a record of protecting the ball better coming in.
Yeah.
And he gets the ball out a little quicker. He's built similarly to Roethlisberger. He's not as bulky, but he's tall. He's got some heft to his frame. Sure. I think he can take those hits, but he gets the ball out just that little bit faster, where he doesn't have those injuries that Roethlisberger has. Because Roethlisberger had that longer arm motion, that just, all the way around.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's definitely getting some momentum behind that ball.
Yeah.
looking through it. I guess, so you mentioned that you want to talk about the playoffs a little bit.
So,
there's some interesting things that I think we can spin off there.
Yeah. So let me just jump into the playoff stats, and then we'll go off into individual playoff years.
Okay.
So Roethlisberger played the most with the Chargers. He had 23 playoff games. And then Rivers and Manning both had 12. Overall record, 13-10 for Roethlisberger, 8-4 for Manning, 5-7 for Rivers. When you look at completion percentage, where Phillip Rivers was at 65%, basically regular season, he drops down to just about 59% in the playoffs. And Eli Manning stays about the same at about 60%. Roethlisberger actually drops from 64 to 62%. Touchdown, the interception, it's roughly the same, except for Eli, who goes down to 2 touchdowns to 1 interception, whereas he's almost even in the regular season, 366 to 244, so 3-2, 1.5. Wow. But, he just had that innate ability once that time of year came around to just turn on the focus and deliver. And, it would have been a very interesting dynamic to have him in the same conference as his brother, who, so famously struggled for so many years in the playoffs.
Sure.
And especially when, I think he was about 4 years younger than Peyton. So coming into the league, and he goes into the situation of the Chargers, where he's got LaDainian Tomlinson and Antonio Gates, and all of a sudden he is, kind of that 06 to 09 time frame, and he's got the better team, and how that pressure builds on Peyton. And I also think it probably chips away at some of those wins that Brady had that Eli still actually got as a Giants quarterback, but I think he gets them earlier as a Chargers quarterback.
It is interesting. I just saw, some of the fan postings here, and it's like, I think the Chargers ended up losing to the Patriots in the playoffs in 2005.
Yeah.
And they're like, or maybe, not 2005, but 2006. And they're like, well, the Chargers would have been in the Super Bowl that year if Eli was playing for him, because they played the Patriots, and he would have beaten them.
Yeah. So, it was I know in 2007 they were in the AFC Championship game, and they lost to the Patriots. They actually beat the Colts that year. The Chargers did. And Phillip Rivers was actually playing with a torn ACL that year, so I guess you can't fault him for that. But
did he have a kid that year also?
I think every year.
I was going to say that torn ACL doesn't stop all things.
But you look at that. He's lost to the Patriots. So I'm just looking at Phillip Rivers' career playoffs. So in 2006, they were 14-2, and they lost to the Patriots.
Unreal, man.
And Phillip Rivers struggled that year, and that team eventually lost to the Giants, if I believe, right? I think so.
What was that, the year?
2006, yeah. Then 2007 playoffs, they made it to the AFC Championship game, and they lost to the Patriots. I think that was the Patriots' undefeated season. So that's the year that they lost to the Giants.
Okay.
Yeah, because then in 2008, they lost to the Steelers in the divisional round, who ended up going on to win the playoffs that year. And they beat the Cardinals in overtime. Yep, because that was the Kurt Warner year.
Gotcha.
So, and then 2009, the Chargers were 13-3 and lost in the divisional round to the Jets when their kicker missed 3 field goals and they lost 17-14. It's rough.
It is rough.
And then 2013, the Chargers lost to the Broncos, who were Peyton Manning's team at the time.
Peyton Manning's Broncos.
So,
Could that have been a Manning Bowl?
So, and I don't know what Eli versus Peyton's record were, so I'm going to look that up real quick.
You do that. So, I was thinking a little bit too, is that as much as I want to think that I don't know, I keep going back to how similar their actual statistics were, but if I were to look at whoever goes to the Chargers, and assuming in this scenario it's Eli, it's like the Chargers didn't have the same defense that the Giants did.
Or the Steelers, for that fact.
Or the Steelers, right? So whoever goes to the Chargers, I don't know if they're necessarily having any more success, but unless it's a different kind of success.
I think I think Eli has a better chance of success his first 5 years.
Yeah.
But I don't think he has it on the back end.
No, I mean, a 2006 season was the chance for them. I mean, there's arguments that could be made that 2007, but in 2009, but other than that, those teams are so average. And does Eli get them to an extra 2 wins or so, and it takes them from average to? Sorry, I hate to say average. Like a 500 record is average in my mind, I guess. But
it was Super Bowl contending for some of the teams in the NFC at the time.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So I guess there's that thing about Eli is like if you just got him to the playoffs, he was a different guy, and those were borderline playoff teams most of the time.
Yeah. So Peyton is 3-0 against Eli, twice with the Colts, once with the Broncos. I wonder if Eli is on the Chargers. I don't think Peyton goes to the Broncos to play his brother twice a year.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So I don't know where he ends up. I didn't look that up at all because I didn't think about that until just now. But
yeah, so I mean, if I don't think Peyton wants to play his brother if he doesn't have to. This isn't like one of those situations where those guys had a ton of bad blood. Like they were, buddies, and as big of competitors as they were, they didn't want. I don't think Peyton would want to chance losing to Eli.
Yeah. No, and just quickly looking, I know other teams that were interested were the 49ers, Titans, and Dolphins. And just trying to think, so I don't think he goes to the Dolphins because he wants to stay out of Brady's division. He doesn't go to the Titans because that's a Colts division. So if he ends up at the 49ers, that is a very interesting dynamic there.
Oh, yeah. Now, I haven't done any too much research on it, but those teams at that time definitely weren't in the same, same type of teams as what we think of now.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at the 2012 season, so I think it would have been him taking over for Kaepernick, and you know what? We'll table that whole thing for another podcast because I think we could uncover a whole lot with Peyton Manning being a San Francisco 49er. So
yeah, let's wait on that one for sure.
So let's focus on Eli and the gang for right now.
Yes.
So, kind of going back to where I started with, it's just, I don't know any other way to put it. It's weird how similar their careers are for all three of them.
Yeah.
I mean, Eli's got the worst win-loss record. And yet, he's probably the most well-known. And when you think about Super Bowls, the most successful of the three of them.
So, I guess, point blank, if Eli goes to the Chargers, does he have a Super Bowl? Yes or no?
I think Seattle. Yeah. I think he gets over in, I'll say maybe, you know what? I think he still ruins their undefeated season. I think he ruins it a week earlier.
I agree with you. I mean, he's talented. He's a Manning. I mean, it is what it is. Like, his averages, his regular season career stuff, record is and everything else. Like, there's a competitive edge to knowing that you're going to sit down at Thanksgiving and compare what's going on to the rest of your family. And there's something to that.
Yeah, and to be honest, I think there's a chance maybe against the Steelers the following year.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he goes back to back, but like as you mentioned, maybe the back half of his career isn't nearly as prolific as maybe it was in New York. So,
right.
But I mean, if you get those two in the first, that's 07, 08, 09, somewhere in that range. I mean, after that, if you got two Super Bowls before, your first 6 years in the league, I mean, it's pretty impressive.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking about things that Pat Mahomes is doing, right? Like, it's a big deal. It's interesting. So Ben Roethlisberger is the one. I know we haven't talked about him as much, but his career is
kind of boring. He showed up, he did what he was supposed to do, and did a good job at it, and then he just exited stage right.
Well, and the thing is, like, he was not the guy who was in play as the number one overall pick.
Yeah.
So, like San Diego wasn't necessarily like a destination for him, and he's going to be the one that is bouncing back and forth between these two cities. Like, New York in its own way can be challenging.
Yeah.
And then, Pittsburgh, which is challenging from just like the whole blue collar nature of the fan base in the city. So I see his career as being similar. Regardless of the place, he's going to take some hits. I mean, honestly, picturing him in the Giants uniform with that defense, I don't know. I kind of would have liked to see it, to be honest with you.
No, it's not. It's not like a crazy mental jump to do that.
No, I picture it like it's very strange. Like it almost feels like it happened.
Yeah,
because it fits him, and I can understand why the Giants were, for that reason, so high on him coming out of the draft.
No, and it's almost like thinking of Rivers with those Steelers teams where, Roethlisberger got his titles, but they were defensive driven teams. And you think about Rivers being able to not, in San Diego, it was offense dragging them to the playoffs. But if that's their defense dragging them, what does that do to his career? If Rivers was with those Steelers teams,
yes.
I mean, with that defense, he's probably, they won in, 05, 08, something like that? I mean, he's getting at least one of those championships, right?
I'm sure, yeah.
I mean, maybe not the one that we gave to Eli earlier, because then that defeats the purpose of my previous comment. But outside of that, he's probably getting the other one.
Yeah. I mean, I feel so. I feel like that's right.
And so it's almost like if this switches, the biggest difference legacy wise is to Phillip Rivers, who probably gets a ring. We assume maybe Roethlisberger still gets one, maybe two of Eli's, probably just one of Eli's rings over Brady.
Mm-hmm.
And then we assume Eli still has one, maybe two rings if he is able to capitalize on the year that Brady went down. And then Rivers gets one of Roethlisberger's rings. So now you're almost just like spreading the wealth between the four of them. So what's that do from a legacy standpoint? Does it diminish any of them?
I think it takes away from Eli's, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Didn't want to steal your thunder there, but like if you were to take anything away, I think a lot of people argue that he is not a Hall of Famer.
Yeah. The whole Eli, is he elite thing?
Is he elite thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I think with one fewer Super Bowl, it really sways it from the middle to that bottom half of like, he was good enough, but he wasn't elite. He wasn't Hall of Fame elite.
Yeah. Yeah, and maybe more. The thing is, maybe it dings Peyton's more, where if he's going up against his brother in those early years,
yeah,
and he's got worse of a record, maybe that impacts that more.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I agree with you. I think Eli probably is the worse off for this situation.
Yes. Yeah, and I mean Phillip Rivers, I actually think it bumps him the other way, even though they would both only have one Super Bowl.
Yeah.
If I'm playing it out the way I am in my head, it's like so that one Super Bowl I think actually elevates him in the Hall of Fame status. Big Ben, he's just going to stay the same.
Yeah. The thing we don't get is, have you seen, or in your research, did you look up Eli Manning's draft day picture with the Chargers?
No, I did not.
Look that up real quick.
Okay.
Go nice little live reaction here, because it shows you exactly how stoked Eli Manning was to be drafted by the Chargers, despite telling them for months he would not go there.
Oh yeah,
he looks like he just opened his sister's birthday present, but it was for him.
Yeah.
It's like
it's just like, oh, thanks guys.
Yeah.
Thanks, Grandma.
It's like, yeah, this.
I love the sweater that you knitted for me. Oh, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I will say this. In going through this, and I think after a few weeks of recording, I've found that I'm really big on these like draft lists. I don't know why, but it's like I love looking at the draft list. It's a really solid, first round draft of players.
Well, and you just think about these quarterbacks, because now you're lucky to have a quarterback for their first contract. A lot of times you run through these guys, but those three guys lasted with their teams for 15 years, give or take. And it's amazing to think about. Like, you draft a guy and that's your ride or die.
Oh, sure. I mean, even I was trying to figure out, okay, are there any teams on here that would have drafted a quarterback that didn't because their guy wasn't there?
Yeah.
And I didn't know enough about the draft to really know. I mean, Cleveland could have always taken a quarterback because that's just what they do.
Yeah.
You had Larry Fitzgerald up there with Arizona, Sean Taylor, was the fifth pick, and then you had Kellen Winslow, Roy Williams, D'Angelo Hall. I mean,
and the crazy thing is, like, you mentioned Larry Fitzgerald, Kellen Winslow. So Larry Fitzgerald was number 2 in the Heisman voting.
Mm-hmm.
Kellen Winslow was like 10th. So like these non-quarterback position players, they were overachieving in college, and like just trying to think of, like, project out, like that's the kind of. I think the biggest name in that Heisman voting was Darren Sproles that didn't really translate to a high draft pick. And I think he was still like second or third round, wasn't he? But he was like 5'6".
Yeah, I mean, he just wasn't a big guy, but he played his role really well.
Yeah.
And that was the big thing with him. Yeah, but I think for the purpose of argument, it's great to think about the teams that did draft a quarterback, right? And we could have gone down a lot of different spaces here with other teams.
Yeah.
But it does point to the quarterback position plays so much into what how we view teams. Like nobody. If a team wins, it's going to be the quarterback. If a team loses, it's the quarterback. And with these 3 guys, you're looking at 3 guys that are, their legacies are ultimately determined by where they ended up, right, wrong, or indifferent.
Yeah. No, and I mean, the fact that, I think those 3 quarterbacks were such an integral part of their franchise's history during that period. I mean, like it's hard to imagine any of those teams with one of these other quarterbacks.
Yeah, I mean, wearing a different uniform, no way.
I mean, like we said, it's easy to picture like Roethlisberger up in a Giants uniform, but it's hard to picture anybody else in a Steelers uniform. And to be honest, it's hard to picture anybody else in a Chargers uniform besides Rivers. Eli's the most replaceable, and yet he's the most accomplished from a Super Bowl standpoint.
It is interesting thinking about the trade that happened in the real world. So it's like Phillip Rivers was the number 1 overall pick in that draft.
If you put that in perspective, flip it around that way.
Yeah. Holy crap.
Yeah.
Which, honestly, even though he didn't win the Super Bowl, I think a lot of people would have been happy with that number one overall pick.
You look at any of those 3 guys and you say, hey, in this draft, you're going to get a quarterback that plays for 16 years and gives you a solid, starter week in, week out. All 3 of those teams say yes.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, I don't know what team in the league doesn't say yes at that point. Maybe, I don't, like, you got Brady at the time and then Peyton and not even Drew Brees at that point because he gets traded or, let go. So.
And the thing is he ended up being uber accomplished as well.
Yeah.
He's got like the footnote in all of this is like, knowing what Eli was coming out of college, I could see him maybe taking the job from Drew Brees even sooner than what Phillip Rivers did.
Yeah. It's just weird to think about how these guys became cornerstones for over a decade.
Yeah.
And I know I keep going back to that, but I mean, you think of how teams just go through quarterbacks now. I mean, Geno Smith just got traded. You look at, like Brock Purdy, he's been there in San Francisco, but, kind of looking, just starting west, moving east. I mean, Stafford's been around for a while, but he got traded. Jared Goff's been around a while, but he got traded. And then outside of that, I mean, you got Lamar Jackson, and Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, who probably won't leave their teams unless they ask to do so.
Right.
Jalen Hurts, I don't think is leaving Philadelphia. And then outside of that, I mean, there's nobody that's...
I mean, that's the thing. Is like you look at Joe Burrow, and Joe, I'm not so sure he stays around.
Yeah, he might ask for a trade.
Yeah, exactly.
And I could see him doing something stupid and trading for Tua right before Tua's career ends.
Yeah, exactly. It is interesting. I learned a lot, like, going through all this, and it was a lot of what I was... It's similar to what you picked up on. We talked about it at length about the similarities in the careers, but I think the post-career is the biggest what-if for these guys. And, whereas, at least in my mind, is that, Eli falls back, Philip goes up, and Roethlisberger just stays the same.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think that's okay. And
yeah.
In this scenario, because it feels like it's right. It feels like it fits.
No, if anything, I feel like this is going to be weird. I think Brady wins the most from the scenario of Manning staying with the Chargers, because now with Eli being over there, it's like the Mannings have two trump cards to throw at Brady for a decade and a half, 2 decades.
Sure.
And Peyton battling him every year has the AFC focus. And then all of a sudden, Eli just shows up in the Super Bowl and is like, hey, gotcha.
Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think just kind of tie a ribbon on this. I think if Eli was a Charger, these 3 quarterbacks with very similar career trajectories would have just slightly different legacies. And yet, I think that the way it all plays out would have been so much different, which would have been interesting to see. And yet, we'll never know outside of a video game. So
yeah, exactly. Wish we could do sometime.
Yeah. And that's a wrap for today. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and share, and be sure to tune in next time.